Listen, if you are anti-breastfeeding, I'm hoping by the end of this video, I would have changed your mind. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and click on that notification to get a notification every time that I post. I post on Thursdays and Sundays when I remember to post on Thursdays and Sundays. Just subscribe, and you'll guys. But yeah, so anyways, it is breastfeeding week, so I thought that I would speak about it because it's something that's very close to my heart. I did send out a poll of questions just to sort of hear some of your misconceptions about breastfeeding, and I think that it's important to just tackle as many of them as I can. Also, if you don't follow me on Instagram, go and do that right now. Just a disclaimer, this is purely for education and entertainment purposes, so if you do have any nutrition specific needs, you must go to a health professional. And also, I am not a lactation specialist. I am just speaking from my experience as a community service dietitian and from my own scope of knowledge, so please just take that into account. You know, you need to go to a specialist for certain things. And if I didn't answer some of your questions, that's because I ran out of time, or it was maybe a question that I couldn't answer in my own scope because of the fact that I am only a ComServe dietitian. I'm trying to stay in my lane. Let's get right into it. Firstly, before I get into it though, I think it's important to just tell you from the 1st to the 7th of August every year it is World Breastfeeding Week, and basically there's always a theme. This year's theme is to support breastfeeding for a healthier planet. So just speaking about how I like to mention the Sustainable Development Goals always when speaking about breastfeeding, because breastfeeding has such a strong link to the Sustainable Development Goals, because first of all, it ends hunger, because by breastfeeding, you're giving a child a sustainable source of nutrition. You're ending poverty, because by breastfeeding, you're helping a child to have a sustainable source again of nutrition, which will help them to grow and develop and be able to be an active member of society, make an income, and support their families in the future. I saw a really amazing post on Instagram done by Live with Tselane. Go and follow her. And I did an Instagram live with her. I mean, we mostly spoke about salts, but we also did mention breastfeeding, and she did an amazing post on her Instagram about breastfeeding and about why it's so important to support breastfeeding for a healthier planet, because the fact that for 1 kilogram of breast milk substitute you're going to be using up 4,000 liters of water, which is a hell of a lot of water. That's a lot of water. Imagine 4,000 liters. What are you saying? So it's so good for the environment because it saves water, it saves your carbon footprint, and you're also reducing waste. It's so environmentally friendly. As a dietitian, nutrition is very important for every single person. In the first 1,000 days of life is essential to their growth and their development, and it sort of gives them a head start and makes sure that they're able to thrive later on in life. There's a lot of statistics about breastfeeding and about stunting. Stunting specifically is how chronic undernutrition sort of shows itself in children. So stunting is when a child, their height for age is below a specific standard deviation according to the height for age or length for age graphs. So it's basically a measure of whether a child is behind in their growth. I mean, if a child is stunted in their growth, in those first 1,000 days, you can't get that time back. So if a child is stunted, it can lead to them having higher risks of chronic diseases later on in life. And it also sort of sets them back in their physical development. And also children who are stunted tend to struggle a lot more in school. So it's really important to make sure that we promote breastfeeding and we promote exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life, because it helps to reduce the risks of stunting. It helps to reduce the risks of babies getting diarrhea and constipation, because in breast milk has a certain sugar called human milk oligosaccharides, or HMO, which helps or is better tolerated by the baby's stomach. It's also really good for the child's immune system. A lot of mothers, when they breastfeed, especially when the first milk comes out, it's very thick and it's more like pigmented sometimes, and they think they should wipe that away, but that milk is so important. It's like the baby's first immune shot. It's packed with immunoglobulins, which are really healthy for helping the baby to essentially create a healthy immune system. So it's so important. And bonding, helping the mother as well. There's so many benefits for the mother in terms of just bonding with the child and reducing their risk of getting postpartum psychosis or postpartum depression. And it also helps to reduce the chances of them developing certain cancers. I'm a very big breastfeeding advocate, and whenever it is this time of the year, I always get very excited. I made boob cakes and put posters up in the hospital. I just do anything within my capacity to promote breastfeeding. So I think that we should all be advocates for breastfeeding because the benefits of breast milk are exponential. But I'm gonna go into your misconceptions that you have about breastfeeding. Okay, the first one, that if you breastfeed, your boobs will sag. I know someone who will not breastfeed because of this. You know what? With breastfeeding, if let's say you've breastfed the first time and the second time, it does sort of reduce some of your breast tissue. So it is likely that your breast will sag, but that happens naturally. As you get older, your skin sags, you get wrinkles. It's part of life. And I think your breast sagging shouldn't be a reason to deprive your child of an opportunity to really, really strong immune system and reduce their risk of getting, childhood diseases that are essentially really, really detrimental to every child and reduces their risks of getting various diseases and even respiratory diseases. I mean, I think as women, we need to love our bodies, and men also. I think it's also men's responsibility to not, put pressure on us when our bodies do change, because you're not always going to look the same. Your body doesn't look the same as it did 5 years ago, and that's what makes life interesting and beautiful. And they deserve to have breast milk. It's what is really truly best for the baby. It comes naturally. It doesn't for everyone. That is true. There are mothers who really struggle to get breast milk, like they can't produce breast milk no matter seeing lactation specialists, and they still struggle. So there are some women who really can't and want to. And I just want to say that it's okay. Like, I will never shame a mom who either decides to not breastfeed or like makes her own informed decision to rather choose formula, because at the end of the day, you're making the decision that's best for you and what's going to work for you and your baby. So if you decide that breastfeeding is something that you can't or something you don't want to do after you've been informed on the importance of breastfeeding and you decide to go for formula, what my responsibility is as a dietitian is to educate you on how to exclusively formula feed, and on how to do it in a safe way, in a hygienic way, and in a way that's going to be sustainable. I think if I were a mom in that position who really wanted to breastfeed and I can't, it would really break my heart. And I know there's a lot of moms, and I've seen moms who've tried and the milk just hasn't come out, and it's the most painful thing to experience with a mom. One misconception I found was you have to eat bland foods. Oh, I know, I've heard this one, because then your baby's gonna drink sour or curry milk. You can eat what you enjoy, and obviously try and eat as well as you can. And as a mom, your nutritional requirements do increase by about 500 or so calories, because you're burning calories by breastfeeding. So just making sure that you eat enough is very important. But you don't have to eat bland foods. What I've experienced is that people think that the breast milk isn't enough. So then they think that they need to give water, they need to give something else to drink to the baby. Just because they think that the breast milk isn't enough for the baby, but actually it always is. The way that it works is that you have fore milk and hind milk, and they have different properties. So your fore milk is more the milk that quenches the baby's thirst, so it's filled with lactose and it's lower in fats. But the hind milk is the milk that's it's higher in fats and protein. So basically that's the one that really helps keep the baby satiated. So then the hind milk is obviously the one that has more, because it has more fats. It is higher in calories, and I think it's something that's important to add is to make sure that mothers finish feeding on each breast. You want the baby to get the full benefits of the milk. For mothers who are HIV positive, you are 100% allowed to continue breastfeeding. It's also important to make sure you're taking your antiretroviral treatment, obviously to help with viral load suppression to prevent mother to child transmission. The breastfeeding recommendations are the same. You initiate breastfeeding within the first hour of birth, and you continue to exclusively breastfeed, which means no milk, no water, just breast milk for the first 6 months of life. And then you continue to breastfeed up to 2 years and beyond. And then you obviously only initiate solids from 6 months of life. They need to be safe, appropriate, sustainable sources of complementary feeds that are filled with red and green and orange leafy vegetables, because the reds and the green and the yellow as well is really good to provide sources of vitamin A and antioxidants. And then the green leafy vegetables are a good source of iron, because the reason why you start complementary feeding at 6 months is because the breast milk isn't enough to meet the baby's iron requirements. So you initiate that. It isn't without pain sometimes. Yeah, I mean, that's very true, because there are women who, if their latching and the positioning isn't correct and the baby isn't suckling on the breast properly, then they can really struggle and end up having cracked nipples, which is extremely painful. I mean, things like mastitis, breast abscesses can be very, very, very painful. So, you know, when those things happen, then obviously, yeah. And also when the breasts get very, very full, some women experience quite a bit of pain breastfeeding, so it changes how your breasts look. Well, probably true. I mean, yes, but again, your breasts were gonna change with time anyway. If you go out to town, you have to express your milk when you get home because it's dirty. This one couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, people do think that, you know, they have to get rid of dirty milk, but there's no such thing. I mean, your milk is kept safe in the little milk ducts and glands in your breasts. They're completely safe. They're not gonna get dirty. And just to add to that, I mean, during this pandemic, it is 100% okay to breastfeed, whether you are COVID positive or COVID negative. There is no evidence to suggest that COVID-19 virus can be passed through breast milk, so mothers who are positive can continue to breastfeed, but then they need to follow all the necessary contact precautions, wearing a mask, sanitizing surfaces, washing hands. All of those precautions need to be followed. We still encourage breast as the first option, so we encourage moms to continue breastfeeding. In terms of expressing, just to add, for our going back to work and they have a baby at home, when maternity leave is over, you can express breast milk and it can stay in the freezer up to from 6 to 12 months. So that's a long time. Yeah, there's no need to stop breastfeeding if you're going back to work, because you can definitely still store the milk and use it at a later stage whenever you need to. But obviously just make sure that you thaw it properly. Another thing, we are very anti-teats. We're anti-teats, we're anti-dummies. In this house, cause nipple confusion, so then babies don't end up suckling as well on the breast. So it's so much better to just, when you want to feed the baby, to cup feed. So to use any cup, and that's so much more accessible than having to spend money on bottles. So you literally can just feed them via a cup, and then the baby will still do the exact same tongue movement that they would have done if they were actually being breastfed. So I'm very pro cup feeding, and I think every dietitian is. Is it true that the baby bites the nipple when breastfeeding? Not at all. Imagine having to have your nipples bits for like essentially hours a day. No, the baby sucks. They're suckling on the breast, and you're not nipple feeding. That's why it's called breastfeeding, because most of the baby's the breast is within their mouth. They're not just their mouth isn't just on the nipple. So there's no biting involved. There never is any biting involved. And if toddlers start doing that, I'm sure mothers give them a very, very, very harsh talking to. That it's inappropriate in public. This is one that really upsets me a lot, because we all eat in public. Why should a baby not be able to eat in public? Imagine having to go to the toilet where people go and do their business and eat in there. Like, that's disgusting. And the fact that, a lot of mothers are forced to do that and are forced into situations where that's the only place that that they feel comfortable feeding in is not okay. We really need to, as a society, do better to make mothers who want to breastfeed in public feel comfortable to do so, because the main reason why they don't feel comfortable to do so is because society has socialized us to think that it's public indecency to do that or to breastfeed in public. Breasts were made for feeding babies. You know, the way society has sexualized women's bodies, or the way, I hate the way that society has socialized us to, as women, to feel uncomfortable or ashamed to, you know, feed our children in public. I think that it's not fair on women that they have to go somewhere private just to feel comfortable. I feel like as a society we need to do a lot better to support women and make women feel comfortable with doing, you know what, they need to do to make sure that their baby is fed. And I think that we have a lot of work to do. I think men, South African men in the world, you need to do better. We need a lot of support. You know, if you have a mom or if you have a family member who's breastfeeding, support her how you can. Clean the house, make her food, you know, do whatever you can to make her feel comfortable, to make her feel good, because it's very tiring. Breastfeeding is very tiring, and you know, you're up to feed the baby every 3 hours in the beginning, and that can be very tiring. So, you know, we need a lot of support. People who are breastfeeding need a lot of support. So I think men, first of all, we need support from men who are not going to sexualize the bodies of people who are breastfeeding, who are going to be able to provide, you know, supportive environments so that women can breastfeed wherever they are, and so that they don't have to go somewhere else. I feel like the whole breastfeeding in public thing just really messes with me. Yeah, I think we need to, I don't understand people who are so bothered and shaken by seeing a breast out. Like, this is a mom feeding her baby. Like, it has nothing to do with you. Going up to them and confronting them about not covering up or being indecent, like, that's none of your business. And if you feel uncomfortable with a mom breastfeeding in public, you need to do some introspection, because it's really not fair that babies now have to suffer because society says that a woman's breast is not acceptable in public, when the breasts were essentially there to help to feed the baby. I'm just very pro breastfeeding in public, and I will always support any mom who decides to breastfeed in public, whether she decides to cover herself or not. That is not our business. I think the fact that we have the ability to produce milk, we have the ability to produce a food that is so nourishing and a nutrient-dense food that we're able to provide to our very own babies. And I think that the fact that we can do that it just blows my mind, and I think that's so amazing. And we need to realize that we have the ability to create a superfood that can make a human grow. I don't even like using terminology like that, but I think in this instant it's so relevant, because it has everything that a baby needs. So I think that is so amazing, and I think breastfeeding is amazing, and I think moms who breastfeed, you are amazing, and moms who don't breastfeed or can't breastfeed, you are also amazing, because the fact that you're moms, the fact that you were able to create life in itself is beautiful and amazing. I don't think I answered all the questions because the sun's going down and my battery's about to die, and there was load shedding, so I couldn't film, and this day. But yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and click on that notification button, click on the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.